Running a call center is tough. Leading a sales team is a challenge. Luckily, your hosts know what it takes to succeed. What you can expect from your two guides? Conversations that won't be overly scripted, definitely not salesy or boring, just filled with as much value as possible. Each week, Jason and Oliver will bring you topics to help scale your team, increase profits, and actually feel like you are winning. So, if you are ready to up your game and become the best in the business, tune in, take notes, and be prepared to learn. And here they are with another episode of Call Center Confidence. It's Jason Cutter and Oliver Catt.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to, as Oliver would love to point out as well, this is technically episode session 25 of the Call Center Confidence with Cutter and Catt. I'm joined, as always. If I'm here, he's here, as always, until he takes vacation. Oliver, Catt, what's new in your world this week before we jump into outsourcing?
Good, Mr. Cutter. All good. Thank you very much. But I would like to make an announcement, if that's okay.
Please.
I believe yesterday it was somebody's birthday, and I believe last time when it was my birthday, you made a big public announcement about it. So I'm coming at you live to saying happy belated birthday for yesterday, even though I did text you yesterday. It's today. Well, we'll say it's today. It's the 10th of November, although it was the 9th. Happy birthday.
It's close enough. I appreciate that. I was going to say, depending on what time zone you're in, it's my birthday, but that's not true because now it's the next day. But yes, thank you. Thank you for that. It's fun. I had a great birthday, which was a combination of coffee with friends and stuff last night for my birthday, and then also working and calls and business and the things that I love doing and people I enjoy talking to. So it was cool. And thanks to social media and reminders, obviously get a lot of message from a lot of people who get alerted that it's my birthday. So that's always fun. And then replying to lots of people, it's always a good time. So I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
That's the one thing that I wish everybody could remove is I love the birthday reminders because it reminds you. But then on LinkedIn, everybody just messages you saying with the automated button that says happy birthday. And you're like, do I respond? Is it rude if I ignore it? I don't really know where to go with that one. So yeah.
What I have found, and I did this a few years ago, and I do this every year, is I know that's the case. Both the automatic and then also the automation with some tools that probably shouldn't be mentioned that will do that for you. Is I reply to them, and if anyone wants to know what I reply with, let me know, or just wish me happy birthday, and I'll reply back with what I manually, not automation, but I reply with. And because usually I'll either ask a question or ask for something as a present, and then see who's actually engaged, and it's kind of fun.
Well, good. It's a good insight. I'm going to do that for next year. But anyway, today it's the 10th. Where are we going today, Jason?
So we are going to potentially wrap up this conversation on outsourcing, offshoring, things like that, mostly focus on outsourcing. We're considering this part 3 of the outsourcing conversation. And we're going to talk about what to outsource. What you could, what you should, what options are out there. A lot of people don't understand or fully realize what it is that they should outsource, when it's appropriate, what the outsource partner is going to do for you. And some of this might sound familiar. We're going to overlap and kind of weave into things that we've been talking about, but really just kind of help people listening, tuning in. And as a reminder, whether you're watching live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, please put comments, questions, say hello, let us know where you're tuning in from. That's always fun. It's usually a good contingent of Oliver's people all around the globe, either South Africa or in the UK, and then we got some people in the US and the people who are following us and engaged. So appreciate that. So say hello. Let us know your comments, questions, your thoughts about outsourcing, your challenges around outsourcing. We love answering questions on the fly and just seeing what happens from that. And then, of course, if you're tuning into the replay, either on those platforms or on the podcast, if you're tuning in, make sure to subscribe, like, follow us everywhere, turn on your notifications, share this with everybody. You're watching the replay, still either leave comments online because those will pop up for us and then we can still interact, Or if you want to just email us, email info@callcenterconfidence.com. We love hearing from people. It is super fun when we get emails and either tips that people need, questions they have, suggestions. And I'm going to beat you to it because I've got the stage here and I'm just on a roll, is we're also looking for guests. We'll probably mention at the end as well. But if you would like to be I don't even want to call it a guest, a co-host on the panel, on the hot seat with us in the upcoming episodes, we're going to do is mix it up. And, you had a great conversation with Mr. Fred Stacy. You also had a good conversation with some other friends of yours that you brought along a month or two ago. And that's a really good format, and we want to do more of that. So if you're tuning in and you're like, hey, I would love to talk to these two kooky, crazy guys about call centers, and that seems like that would be fun for you on a live platform where you never know what's going to happen, email us or message us and find us and let us know.
Yeah, exactly that. We're going to be coming that. We'll this week coming, we'll launch the sign up link. We'll add it to the website, we'll add it to the socials, and then you'll get a calendar invite once approved to join an episode, especially covering topics of your choice. So that's good. So so as Jason mentioned today, we're going to be talking more about the outsourcing world, closing this piece off. And as he said a moment ago, the whys, the wheres, the whats, and what type of businesses we tend to see as an outsource. Giving my 2 cents very quickly, most of it seems to be voice, non-voice, obviously, as we all know, whether it's web chat, inbound, outbound, etc. But Jason, coming to you first, what type of companies do you see predominantly in the outsourcing, in the BPO contact center world? What type of clients, what type of businesses do you mainly see kind of kicking out there?
You mean people who are then using outsourced BPO?
Yeah, exactly.
Services? Yeah. So it's generally it falls into two camps that I see is and this is independent of vertical, but a lot of times it's either company that's looking to scale and they haven't quite got that nailed down internally. So they're small, they're wanting to grow, the pace at which they're hiring internally, they could do better or match that, and they want to grow exponentially in both areas, and so then they outsource. So that's one kind of size. And then the other one is somebody who's big and established, and they know that they have, let's say, full offices, or they have their setup, and they know it would be very easy for them to hand the process to an outsourced company and just have them continue to scale for them. So mature and kind of younger ones that are growing. And I see this with business to business, business to consumer. Business to business is a little bit harder because that takes a lot of usually industry and product knowledge and information that you have to know about what you're selling, who it's a good fit for, how to have those conversations, usually longer sales cycle. And when it's a longer sales cycle, that can be hard to outsource and offshore. But you see a lot of companies doing the appointment setting or the lead generation, the SDR portion of it, which is kind of getting things going. And that's easier. And then the internal team takes over. And then on the B2C side, business to consumer, you see a lot of companies doing both the lead generation side, but also full sales from a BPO outsource once they get it dialed in. And, that could be a challenge from the sales side. And do they understand what they're selling and who they're selling to and the US culture? Once they get that dialed in, a lot of B2C companies are successful with outsourcing, some or all of their sales.
Just to touch on a point there, and I think it's really important for anybody who's thinking of outsourcing to kind of go out there and do. There is a big difference between B2C outsourcing and B2B outsourcing. A lot of companies don't think, it's the same thing. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We'll give it to, 15, 20, 30 seats. But you'll see a big difference in numbers. You'll see a big difference in sales, a big difference in service, AHT, the whole 9 yards, you name it. And I don't think a lot of companies expect that. I've worked with call centers out specifically offshore, near and far, where they've got agents that have come in. And this is something to ask, especially if you're putting out an RFP and you're looking at providers and things like that. When it comes to doing recruitment, is they will go out there and they'll go, no, I've got some of the best salespeople out there. They've worked in a B2C environment. They were closing like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deals a day. Brilliant. Amazing. And then it comes to the B2B environment, and they're not even doing one, or it's 0.5 or 1.2 or 1.25 a day. It's a big difference. So don't be disheartened. Don't be put off by the fact that you are going to see numbers drop, especially if you've worked in one industry and you're migrating over to another one. It's a big change in my book. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, and I think I might have covered it last week, where one of the biggest things is when people outsource, and this goes into this conversation, what should you outsource, is they outsource in a B2B environment. They think a call center can do it either better than they can in-house or instead of what they're doing in-house. And if you think about how long it takes for you to have an internal person learn what you're selling, learn the product and service, learn the scripting, understand it, be able to have intelligent conversations that move people forward, how long is that speed to competency, as you refer to it, right? The challenge is people outsource and they think, oh, well, they do that for a living, so they should be able to. Or the salesperson at the BPO outsourcing company does what you did, which is get them all excited and either overpromise, underdeliver, or comparing apples to oranges with results. And then what happens is it doesn't happen. It doesn't work. And so one of the keys is to make sure, if you're going to outsource your B2C, your B2B, your long sales cycle, any part of that, is that you have the patience, you have the financial money set aside, and you have the understanding that it's going to take them as long as it would internally. If they win before then, you're ahead. But it might take 3, it might take 6 months. It's different than B2C, which is like, let's go through a week or 2 of training. Here's on the phone, you're closing deals right away, just like if you had them in-house. And I think that's really important, like you said, is to understand that.
Yeah, no, I think, and it's a big banner. It's a big cause for concern for a lot of people. Don't be afraid. Hold tight, hold steady, and don't pull the plug just because you think it's going to come unraveling. 3 months, you'll start to see a difference, and the further you go, you start to see an increase in that. So there's big changes ahead, especially in that type of environment. The other thing as well with the B2B is you're going to notice it's a very different ball game, especially when it comes to the sales agent, tactics, skill, training, sales progression. Again, it's a very big thing, but again, it depends on the size of your project. And that's why it's important to make sure you set aside the right amount of training time and build everything in. The other piece I want to talk about, which you picked up on there, Jason, is lead generation. Lead generation is rife in the BPO industry. Why? And I hate to use this kind of terminology, but they call it the kind of grunt work, so to speak. And I've heard that name thrown about a lot. It's used very heavily in the industry, but lead generation is a very, very fruitful campaign if you can outsource something like that. And so many companies are moving to a lead gen offshore. Why? Because they're either trying to cleanse data, they're trying to get people just to literally dial and dial and dial and dial, set appointments, set the gross kind of sales ahead, and then, as you say, move into the account exec, move into the sales team, let the kind of tenured person move on. And what I do see, especially in the UK industry, they have offshore dialing at a very good rate, going through leads, booking those appointments, setting those appointments, and then having a high conversion. One of the clients I'm working with at the minute, they're actually having a very high penetration rate through to a 93% closure rate when it's transferred back onshore to close the sale. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at it. And a 93 closure rate on an appointment setting, especially when it's come from an outsourcer, is a phenomenal number.
Yeah, and I think really the big key, and when I'm hearing you talk about this, and it's a good thing for companies to understand, if you haven't outsourced, you don't know what you should outsource, what you could outsource, is first, what I recommend starting with is looking at what your team is currently really good at. If you have a team of sales closers, right? Sales people. And let's say in this scenario, right? So imagine this, Oliver, and I know you've seen this, is that I've got a team of closers. They are good at closing deals. If I give them the appropriate leads or appointments, they know what to do. Kind of like what you're talking about with your 93% close. Then if that's the case, what you want to do is you want to ensure those people are at the plate as often as possible and not out doing other things, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you play baseball and, you get paid for hitting the ball, it's about the amount of time you spend at the plate, not, in the dugout or walking around or hanging out, right? So it's about having those attempts. And I think the key is that if that's the case for you, how do you maximize their time? How do you make sure they're in the zone as much as possible? And then what can you outsource to somebody else leading up to that and serving them up with those opportunities? Now, a lot of times people think outsource means South Africa or the Philippines or Mexico. Sometimes that could be outsourcing to the room next door where you've got to build it. I've done that where it's like there's telemarketing, which is doing the lead generation in the next room. And then it's almost like two different divisions. So for some people, you might already have that, but that's, in my opinion, where you really want to start and work backwards, which is how do I get my money makers to stay in the zone, closing deals and not doing other things like cold calls, outbound, outreach. And then who can I have do that at a more economical price? So what do you see with that, or what have you seen where that's been really effective in your experience? Other than your 93%. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Look, I think we've touched on it a lot over the last 2 episodes, and I think I want to bring it up again. Is what I see is a lot of people do it is purely down to cost. And it's down to the money on the table at the end of the day. We operate, especially one of my business partners and we operate at around about a kind of 40 to 50% saving. I think I'm back there. I think I dropped out for a second. Can you still hear me? Am I good?
Yep.
Okay. So it's just my camera's frozen while it looks like I was on the toilet. Okay. Great. So as I was saying, so we operate at around about a 40 to 50% cost saving per hour once you bake in all the costs. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people look to outsource. Now, don't get me wrong, headcount, not being able to recruit. I spoke to somebody this morning, one of my clients, who is looking to outsource. And the reason being is because they can't get enough bums on seats to dial the data that they've bought. So they were like, well, hang on a minute. How quickly can you put 10 seats out for me, 15 seats out, 20 seats? And it was like, well, okay, well, look, we've got to get the right people in, but this is what we can do. But I think the cost saving is the big one. And the reason for that is because you get more bang for your buck. Specifically when you start to increase or include, should I say, services and features. So for example, under $1 an hour on top of your standard rate, you can include sales tools with real-time QA and sales enablement, e-learning platforms, and it breaks down. So when you're paying, anywhere between $10 and $20 an hour, depending on what type of outsourcer you're using, a lot of these people will say, look, we'll throw in this system for you. We'll throw in your own white label e-learning platform, your own voice analytics tool, things like that, because it's baked into the costs. And if you're spending, I don't know, on average, I think it's the UK is about £30, and I think the US is about $35 to $40 an hour in-house for your people. That's with your licensing and everything else, with your software, with your building costs, with your water. You can half that, and you can have more technology built into what you're trying to do. And I think that's probably one of the big ones. That for me is what stands out above the rest.
Yeah, and I think because this is a good reminder, because we both seen this before, is where companies think, okay, I'm going to outsource this. I'm paying $35, $40 in the US. I'm going to go somewhere else and pay $15, $20 an hour. And I just want the cheapest possible. Or I want to relive the old days where you could go to the Philippines for $4 an hour. And, why can't I get that now? But what are you getting and what's included with that? And how much work are you going to have to do from your side to then manage that or ensure it's good, for what you're looking for. And I think that's important. And this goes into what could you or should you outsource? Some of that is outsourcing that management, relying on technology and using things that you might not even have in-house. Because one of the things, as you're talking about this, and I know the platforms, because we both work with them that you're referring to, is one of the things that I see is that companies don't have these technology items in place in their sales tech stack and their sales enablement. They don't have the e-learning platforms, the gamification, the QA, the automation, the scripting prompts, AI. They don't have those things because either they're worried about their agents not handling change, or they don't either think they can afford it, or the cost is too high for this scale of their organization, or I heard this from somebody yesterday, which is if I get this, it's probably going to break something over here. And
Yeah.
like, it's just all built on like this house of cards with their tech stack, which happens. It's happened to all of
Just
us. Literally,
break it.
we've all built we've all built this Frankenstein sales tech stack before. We've all done it and had to do it. And so one of the things is, when you outsource, is you can also outsource and get those tools, because that outsource partner is now playing at scale, where you might have 30, 40, 50 reps in house, 100 reps, 10 reps, 2 reps, it doesn't matter. You're dealing with a partner that has 500, 1,000, 5,000. Like, there's some behemoth. They have 30,000, 100,000. Like, it's crazy, the scale. And when you're working with a partner that has that, they have 500 reps. Now they have a tool that literally, what you're talking about is adding $1 with all of this tech stack, because they're buying it at scale. They're shopping at Costco, not the grocery store, because they're getting all these things. And that's something overlook, right? That's a lot of companies just forget that part. And then they're worried about pinching pennies with outsourcing, when they could go, holy crap, this is saving me thousands of dollars a year in seat licenses for all these bits. Now I've just got it included. It's a package deal, and they're doing what they do.
I'll give you a prime example, and I can give you numbers right now, because I had this conversation 2 days ago, right? One of my clients wanted an e-learning gamification tool, who I'm talking about, Jason.
I do.
And they were looking at paying. It worked out around about 45 cents an hour, maybe a little bit less by the time you've broken it down with the number of heads, because it was quite a low head count that was going to go in. When I looked at it and pushed it through to one of our outsourced partners, it dropped down to 4.5 cents an hour. And that just literally plummeted because of the volume. And that is a prime example. So again, effectively, you look at, and I'm going to run these numbers because I think it's always good for people to run these numbers. But let's say you're saving about 40 cents an hour, right? Across about, let's call it 15 heads. So 40 cents an hour times 15 people, that equals $6 an hour, right? That's $6 an hour saved. You run that over an 8-hour day, they're saving $48 a day. $48 a day, about 260 working days a year. All of a sudden, they're saving 12.5 grand.
Yeah, and that's on the platform that just leveraging the outsource partner at scale is saving, versus paying for that in house, and it's now a part of that team.
Yep, and that's it. Instantly, all of a sudden, again, and that's not already saving on the head count, the hourly rates, or anything like that. That was just one application.
Yeah.
You add in, as you say, the rest of the tech stack, the other e-learnings, the sales enablement tools, the voice analytics tools, the QA tools, all of these different partners that we work with. You add those into the mix. You don't even want to know where that adds up over the years. And guys, look, this is top tip. Outsourcing is key when it comes to tech stack. Look at what's available. Look at all those SaaS products and platforms that you pay for. I mean, I used to pay $4 an hour, I think it was, for an e-learning tool back in the UK that we used. It's now #1 in the world. It's a fantastic platform. I got a discount at the time because of volume, but I guarantee if I went to an outsourcer, I would have that or an equivalent built in, and their training team would take care of the content for you.
Yeah.
Overnight, you're saving money. That's it. And look, I know we ran on it. It's not just about cost. It's about quality. It's about delivery. It's about numbers. It's about everything else. But for me, cost sits at the #1 priority of any reason why anybody wants to outsource.
Well, and I think one of the big things, because you and I know this, and I've learned this a lot, is that, keep these things in mind. So if you're watching this and you're going like, okay, I need to outsource, I want to outsource, obviously always hit us up, ask us questions, Oliver, myself, LinkedIn, email us. One thing to keep in mind, though, is you want to build your list of what you want included, what the problem is you're trying to solve. Just like if you're trying to sell one of your clients, right? Your leads to become a client for whatever business you have, you're trying to solve a problem, help them accomplish a goal, get them out of pain, whatever that looks like. So same thing, because this BPO outsource, offshore, onshore, doesn't matter. That partner is going to be solving a problem for you and helping you out. And if you're clear on what it is that you want, right? Like this dream list, like we've been giving you for 3 weeks now, plus everything else we've talked about. is make sure, because not all outsourcing BPO partners are the same. And a lot of them are playing a no tech game just like you, and just hoping they can hustle and fill seats and go through. They have a lot of churn of clients because they're constantly, people are hiring them and then firing them because it's not great. So you just want to make sure, put together your list of what you want and need, and then filter partners through that list, so that you're not compromising. Because the last thing you want to do, and I've seen companies do this, is they find somebody, they outsource some or whatever of their revenue operation, they're not getting everything they want, and now they've got a partner who is equally what's a nice way to put it, I don't want to say incompetent,
That'd be nice.
Ineffective, right? And not taking you to another level, right? They're just playing the same game you are, which isn't helpful. You want somebody who's playing a better game and at a cost savings, then you're winning.
Yeah, exactly. And we all want to win, right? That's it.
Yeah.
We all want to win. We all want to get something out of it. And again, I want to touch on not necessarily about the cost saving, but actually to the point of the technical stack that's there, the software, the apps that are there. I spoke to a call center that I'm partnered with in Honduras yesterday. And upon speaking to them, they said, whatever software the client needs, we'll get it. As long as it's, a reasonable price, we'll get it. And they're a client that they're looking for volume. So they're looking for at least any campaign to go to them with 50 plus seats, which, I can understand. But like I say, you put 50 seats offshore, they're going to go and get what they need to get in order to make sure that software is delivered. And again, most clients come in with the software anyway. It's just a lift and shift. They install their accounts, install their phone systems, their telephony accounts, their dialers, or whatever it is, and away you go. But they will go and buy e-learning tools. They'll go and buy analytic tools. They'll go and buy, diary and appointment setting tools and things like that. Whatever it is. And as you say, be clear in what you want. And I think that's probably one of the big reasons that we need to see that. So look, moving away from costs, moving away from tech, I think it's also a very good point. And I know it's something we've touched on recently, is actually having the ability to recruit. And I've noticed this, especially in the US. It was a conversation that Fred and I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. And it is also something that's really poignant now in the UK. As again, I spoke to one of the centers this morning. They just can't recruit. Why do you think some of these centers can't recruit at the minute, Jason?
In the US, I mean, I feel like we're all really aware of it. It's interesting because it's been the common issue from so many people I've talked to on both sides, right? On the supplier vendor side, and then also people running companies. I mean, I think there's a big shift. There's two things. There's a big shift in the US where people have been receiving funds because of the pandemic, and a lot of people, like, they don't necessarily need to go back to a call center job because of the money they've got. I also think there's a really big part where this was a huge awakening for people in this whole thing that happened, where people got some money, some assistance, stepped back, unemployment, whatever it was, and said, wait, what do I really want to do with my life in a positive way? Like, what would I rather be doing? So I think there was a lot of that where people went different directions or didn't know what they wanted to do, or they're still kind of in limbo. So I think there's some of that. And then I think it's challenging too, because with the jobs that are out there, I think it's gotten to the point, and I've talked to people about this, where a call center job is not necessarily the type of thing that people look forward to. I think we talked about that maybe last week or the week before, where in other countries, it is a great job that leads to professional, success. People go into those jobs with a whole bunch of degrees in some countries, and like, it's a really good job to have. In the US, it's like a starter job. It's something you don't do for very long. Some people make a career out of it. I've known some great career call center employees that are fantastic. They love it. They become a manager. They become a lead. It's just, I think, harder to fill those seats, especially right now. But it's not the place where people think. The way to win at that locally is companies that have a great culture and people want to work at it. And that's how you solve that. But I think that's one of the challenges, right? And so, I think the way to win with that in the US, if you're looking to outsource, is to always be looking and growing your internal team. and then outsourcing and doing both. What you don't want to do is say, all right, we're struggling in-house, let's just do it all offshore and then put all our eggs in that basket, because you never know what could happen. So you want to make sure you're diversified in some level, right? Is that what you've
Yeah.
seen too?
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%, 100%. I think it makes sense. I also think as well, and I want to be aware that some offshore centers do have struggle in recruiting teams as well. It's not just located to the areas that we're picking up on here, and I want you to be aware. A call center I spoke to recently lost a contract because and bear in mind they were based offshore. They weren't able to put the bums on seats that they needed for the campaign, so the campaign shifted to another country.
Wow.
And that was one outsourcer to another. So again, if you're an outsourcer listening, make sure that you don't have those kind of pitfalls, because nobody wants to lose a contract like that, especially if it's coming up for renewal. It's hourly rate, and everybody wants hourly paid work these days rather than cost per acquisition, cost per lead, because it's guaranteed income. And let's be honest, everybody wants to make money out of it. That's why they're in it in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that is key. And anybody at any moment can have difficulty hiring. I mean, anything in any region could change, politically, weather-wise, infrastructure. I've seen all of those things over the years where an area will do well and then struggle in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think the key is that diversification, right? So when you're talking about what can I outsource, what should I outsource, it's also what should my goal be of how many outsourced locations or partners do I want to have, so that I'm
Yep.
just diversified, right? Instead of having one office in one location. But also, I think when we have this conversation too, whether it's about the staffing or the tech or which part, I think really important reminder at this point is to remember to just take it bit by bit. A lot of people say, okay, I have this team. Now I want to go outsource all of it and build up 100 reps. It's like, whoa,
Yep.
let's just sometimes that's overwhelming. Let's just do one bit at a time, right? Like where do we need to start? What process, what area? Eventually you want to have different offices. Just take it one bite at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It doesn't need to be a rushed process. It doesn't need to be something that's going to be, I've got to get it all done by tomorrow, and make sure, it's not a be quick kind of scenario. Some of these things take time. Jason, you and I have worked on a project on the sideline now for, best part of 6 weeks, and we're still very early doors with something like that, right? And 6 weeks is nothing. Nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. Yeah, we're episode 25. That means as of next week, we're 6 months into this podcast, live stream, whatever you want to call it. And again, we're in it for the long haul. We're not in and out, and we're not expecting somebody to come to us tomorrow and say, "Hey, we want you to come and work for us," because we're here to share advice and share tips. We're here to talk about this stuff, and we've had those conversations with people. But success isn't overnight. There's no silver bullet to this. There's no magic bullet, magic pill, whatever anybody wants to call it when it comes to outsourcing, because I think you've got to make sure you get it right, and take your time, go slowly.
Yep, for sure. And anyone that promises you the silver bullet is not being honest, because it's not there. Just as for your company, if you have a sales team, anybody on your team that's promising your solution is a silver bullet, that's just going to lead to unhappy clients. So let me ask you, so we've been talking phone stuff. Obviously, we're call center phone people. That's what we do, right? It's what we've generally always done. However, one of the things that's always interesting is outsourcing non-phone related activities and what that might be, or non-sales related activities. What have you seen? What have you seen either, because I always think it's good to talk about both, is either what's you have seen successfully outsourced offshore, whatever that looks like, that's a non-phone campaign or project, and then what you've seen like fail miserably because they tried and it didn't work.
Okay, all right, you put me on the spot here again. Here we go. All right, so let's start with other things that I've seen outsourced and that's gone out there. All right, and it's not been sales, because that's a nice quick win on this one. All right, customer service. I've seen a lot of successful customer service teams outsourced, specifically airlines, telco, cell phones. Well, that would fall under telco, insurance, banking, in the service sector. And they've done really, really well in it. I'd also go as far as to say technical support, but for me, whenever I've been involved in some of the technical support, diagnosis, things like that, sometimes it's fallen short because I think there's sometimes a barrier of communication. Sometimes because trying to explain what you're looking at is difficult. But though technology has moved a hell of a lot forward now, working with one center that's using a really good app where you can look at things together in real time over the phone at the same time. That's really good.
Yeah.
But customer service, I want to jump on, and the reason why I want to jump on it, I have seen stats with some of the call centers that I've worked with just skyrocket in average handling time reduction, in terms of customer resolution times, in terms of single first call resolution that we all like to bark on about in contact centers. Everybody wants to talk about first call resolution, contact customer ratios. I've seen all of these just improve time and time and time again. I'll give you an example. There is one airline that I've worked with specifically. They decided to keep the same size center running in the UK versus the same size center running offshore. I'm not going to say where because some people will know exactly who I'm talking about. And to put it bluntly, they were running the same telephony. Everything was the same. Hold times and wait times in the onshore site were 2 to 2.5 times higher than what the offshore site was. And there was a lot of reasons for that because, again, they were paid by the hour. So, again, they wanted to get as many calls through as possible. But they were also paid on service levels, retention, customer service delivery, average handling time, and a few other metrics they were bonused on. So they actually employed some really good service teams to kind of deal with these calls. They paid them a little bit more, but again, that was still probably less than what they were being paid onshore. And these guys absolutely smashed it to the point where they decided to take all of their service teams offshore and they migrated the onshore team into something else. So no one lost their jobs in the process, which was fantastic because that's what we want. We don't want people to lose their jobs, but they moved that entire process offshore. And that was a big, big win for that airline. And I loved working in that environment. I think it was great. And it was very, very, very successful. That's my success story when it comes to service. There's a few others, but I don't want to bore you with it. I think that's probably the most interesting one when it comes to stats. And the other part of it was failures, right?
Both failures, and then also non-phone campaigns. Successes, failures. Right. Yeah.
So again, I'm going to go with a technical support failure. I think that was probably one of the ones. But again, technology has moved on. But non-voice. So we're talking like admin. We're talking e-chat, web chat, things like that. Email campaigns. Yeah. Again, as long as the processes are in place, I think it's easy to migrate anything offshore. I had a call with a friend of mine the other day who works in automation and RPA and bots. And again, there's a lot of people going to them and outsourcing to bots now because it's easier to run administration tasks and reporting tasks through bots. And again, at a fraction of the cost. One of my contacts specifically resells a very, very high-end brand of RPA. And they're doing very well at the moment, especially when it comes to being outsourced to for admin work. But again, it goes back to that whole lead generation piece. It's the kind of boots on the ground piece, the admin stuff. E-chat is high profile, but again, you can put good teams in there. I think there's a lot of companies, especially in South Africa, that specialize in that whole web chat flow process. And again, it's easy. You're not dealing with anybody. You haven't got to worry about, where people are, location, time zones, accents, anything like that. Web chat's web chat. Look, when I first started using web chat, I thought it was all automated. I didn't think I was ever speaking to a real person. I had thought every single web chat was automated. But again, it's something that you can automate. However, to be fair, there is one web chat company that I'm speaking to at the minute that I've contacted 4 times in the last 3 weeks. I would love to mention them, but I know we said we weren't mentioning names and brands until we hit at least 6 months. So I'm saving that one. But there is one specific cell carrier that has infuriated me because their web chat team can't do what they said they were going to do.
Well, and obviously, I think we all have examples of that with web chat where it's ridiculous automated systems, where it's, you just speak what it is that you have a challenge with and it'll route you to, or you get to a team and it's just not effective. Like you said, language, communication. Yeah. And I think kind of working backwards, because I love the examples you talked about. I mean, I think the non-voice campaigns, the non-voice tasks and projects. I mean, there's web chat. Sometimes there's SMS, because you can do a bunch of AI with SMS, but at some point a human needs to be involved and interact. And there's some cool tools and companies that have both. And they're using people for when it gets to a certain point that it takes that. But like you said, that can be anywhere. Any team can do that. Funny story about the web chat. So when I switched from not going into marine biology once I got my degree into figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, I got a job at Microsoft. I was working in Seattle. And the first year I was doing phone tech support that was escalated to me, the second tier. And this is in the US. This is back when it was in the US. And then the second year I was there is we were doing web chat support for Windows. So I was that guy behind the chat that people were talking to. And then that's when they started outsourcing. We all lost our jobs to China and India when Microsoft first started outsourcing offshore instead of in the country. And so I've seen that on both sides. And I think what's interesting is those non-voice campaigns, a lot of people aren't sure what to do. The key to success with that, what I see right now, is a lot of people offshore or outsource the non-voice campaigns. And then what happens is they think that's just going to solve all of it. You want to make sure you build your process that when that chat gets to a certain point, or that SMS conversation gets to a certain point, or that email gets to a certain point, that it's going to someone who's going to then be on the phone call, and not trying to solve it all with a non-voice campaign. There's so many companies that just want to avoid having a call center, having a phone team, support, service, sales. And they think that, I'll just be able to sell over SMS or chat. I'll outsource for pennies on the dollar to some country to have them do my chat support and sell for me and get people to buy on my website. And unless you have a very simple thing that you're selling, that's not going to work. And you're going to lose a lot of people, I promise. I go to sites like that where I'm like, this is garbage. I want to talk to someone. You can't ever talk to somebody. Then I'm going to bounce, because there's a dozen other like that company. So I think the key is outsource offshore. That's great. Non-voice. Make sure once it gets to a voice, or have a path for a voice solution for people who want to talk, and make sure you have that built. The other thing too, and I learned this when I was at Microsoft, is that we were tier 2. They were actually outsourcing to tier 1, which was in a different part of the state, but it was not Microsoft. It was another frontline company. And again, this is pre-offshore. So this is outsourced in the US. And what the warning I have for people is to make sure is what you're paying for and what parameters you put in place, because they were getting paid by the call. So every time they got a tech support call, that outsource partner was basically charging market or getting paid by the call. And so their goal was to keep the calls as short as possible and then punt them to tier 2 to Microsoft as fast as they could, because they wanted to maximize their revenue per hour on the calls. And so if you're outsourcing, you're doing that, make sure you're not incentivizing them to give bad service or short service or not sell appropriately, because that could bite you when you're trying to save money and you don't understand what you're actually incentivizing them to do.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. It's the same when you I can't even think of the word, incentivize, should I say?
Yeah.
Salespeople, service people, whatever it might be, everybody's going to find a loophole in the payment metric. All right. One way or another, we used to, One of the companies I worked with a while ago used to have a split sales and service team, but you could press whatever you wanted on the automated IVR and go wherever you wanted to go, right? So if service wasn't picking up, they'd hit sales. But the thing is, though, sales, your call would go through, and then you'd be marked on conversion because you get a call that wasn't related to sales, but it would go against you because you received a call on the sales line. So they then implemented this rule, which was, if you establish it's not a sale and you transfer it out within, I think it was 45 seconds, that call doesn't go against your sales conversion. Now, what the sales agent then did was they got to a point where with this loophole, they would basically ask up front, so are you looking to buy X today? I nearly said what the product was. Are you looking to buy X today? And if the customer said no, it was literally, please hold, bang, gone. And they would literally bang it out straight away, even though the amount of calls that ended up in the service team that did turn into sales were because they weren't doing enough discovery. They weren't doing, all of your fact finding and your disclosure on the call. Because you know as well as I do, when you get an inbound sales call, yes, there's intent to buy, but there's also intrigue. So you've got to get that either through the emotional and the intelligent decision making at that point, whether they're going to buy from you on that call. Now, again, most of these calls probably did have the intent to buy, but it's who they spoke to on the other end of the phone. So it kind of served that salesperson right for banging it out, just in the hope that it wouldn't go against their overall sales conversion. But then they'd kick themselves because they know that if a transfer turned into a sale, they'd get notified about it. So they'd effectively get told, oh, you just missed out on this massive deal. You just missed out on this massive amount of commission because you wanted to get them off the phone quickly. And it destroyed customer service. So within 3-4 months, they removed that and just changed the whole process to fix it. But again, everybody will always find, and go back to what your point is, they'll find a loophole. They'll find a way around whatever that stat is or whatever that conversion metric is and find a way out of it. That's my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before with compensation plans. I don't remember what week, but obviously refer to that. And it's a good reminder, right? Especially when you're outsourcing, because now what you're doing is you're taking what you were doing in-house, or either you're doing in-house successfully or unsuccessfully, right? Because you and I have both seen both sides. Let's just be honest with people who are watching or listening to this, is some of you are like, how do I outsource my mess? Because I don't know how to do it well in-house, which is good. That's okay. You just have to work with a partner who's going to help build it and then make it successful. You also have to have the patience and, again, set aside the money that it's not going to be instant. They can't fix your house instantly if you haven't been able to fix your house instantly, right? Or by now. So, which is fine. I think that's an okay way to go. You just have to understand what you're asking. But the key is that whatever you're going to have them do, and whatever incentive compensation plan, whatever that looks like, keep in mind, people will generally find a way to win at the game they want to play. Now, I'm not saying when you outsource that company's just going to try to get one over on you. It's human nature. The company is probably going to do the right thing. The people on their team are people, and they're humans, and left up to their own devices, they will try to find a way to win no matter what. I've seen it even with great companies. Like, there's just always, so you want to make sure your incentive plans, your comp plans are focused on the results you want, and that you button up as many loopholes as you can so that you're getting the right thing for you and for your customers. Because again, what I've seen is salespeople being incentivized by sales, closing deals that are not compliant with people who are lied to and promised the world that then canceled the next day, but the salesperson got the credit today. And you definitely don't want that with an outsource, because then you're going to blame them, and you got to keep in mind, what did you set up? And maybe that's not their fault. So I think that's a great reminder. So a couple of the questions here as we wrap up, and would love for you to just run with this as much as possible. And we've kind of touched on it, but I think it's a good reminder when we're talking about what should and could outsource is, when should you outsource? And then the flip side of that is, what should your outsource partner be doing for you, whether it's like the setting up of the campaign or, what tasks they take from you. But like, let's start either one of those. But when should you start to outsource? What have you seen when you're talking to somebody and you're like, yes, you should, or no, you're not ready?
In terms of process ready, or in terms of I've got a fire and I need to put it out ready?
Either one, both, all of them.
Yeah. Okay. So look, one of the things that I will say is a lot of these centers are built around processes that work. They've had experience, they're tenured, they're good at what they do. All right. Now, what a lot of companies that I've worked with have found is they've gone, great, do you know what? We need to do this and we're going to do it internally. And I do my own business development for my outsourcing and sales and things like that. And I'm chatting to some of my clients and they're going, oh yeah. So we manage X. And I'm going to use I don't know, complaint handling, for example, right?
Okay.
We manage X and we do that internally. Okay, great. So what's the process? What's the automation? What do you do when these triggers hit this and when that happens? And they go, well, what do you mean? All of a sudden, I'm kind of like, I'm looking at them like, what the hell are you doing? And then they go, well, why are you looking at me like that? Whether it's on Zoom or face to face or anything like that. And I kind of get to this point, and you ask the question of when do I say you're ready to outsource? Is when I go, okay, you are surviving. You're running around. I like to use the word busy rather than productive.
Okay.
Right. And yes, they might be busy. Yes, they're getting things done. But you know what? They're not doing it in a productive way. They are not doing it in a cost efficient way, or they've got too many men and women working in this area when actually, do you know what? They should be working on this area. And the reason why I suggest outsourcing, or I suggest a partner that we work with, is purely down to the fact that these guys know what they're doing. Now, I know you said about not always handing somebody else's fire to an outsourcer for them to deal with it, but they can sit down with you operationally. And the same way that you and I do it, JC, we sit there, we're brought in to consult with companies, to work with people, individuals, companies, large, small, whatever it might be. And we go in there and we give our expertise we give our 2 cents on the matter. And I think it's important to realize that with anything like this, I'm not to say we've been through it. I mean, I think we've been through a lot of stuff. We haven't been through everything. But we can sit down and we can map out processes and procedures using our experience. And that's why, I've got a portfolio of about 16, 18 call centers that I work with overseas, globally, that have all done complaints handling, or majority of them have done complaints handling. So I'll sit down with them and go, okay, company A is doing this. I've suggested this. How can you come in and fix this? And then we go to that partner and say, right, look, this is what we've come up with. There's 3 sites that have come up with pretty much the same thing. They can fix it. And in the process, they can reduce your costs. They can fix this. They can shorten the length of time that a complaint takes from 6 weeks to resolution down to 2 weeks to resolution, which creates a happy customer, which then creates a better NPS score for your business, which then creates a better Trustpilot score, which creates more customer, which generates more sales. And it has that knock-on effect. And we can show that return on investment by fixing this. We're giving them this. And I think that's probably one of the best ways that I can explain why we would recommend at a certain point, certain clients should outsource. That's my thought process on that question, if that answers it.
Yeah. And I think that's key, right? It's about where are you at in your development? What do you have in place? What are you looking for someone to do? And are you ready for it? Right? Like, are you at a point in your business where you can do it? And again, that goes back to something I said weeks ago, which is, are you trying to delegate the things that you can do and know how to do? Or are you trying to abdicate, which is, please do this for me, and I don't want to know, and I don't know how to do it, and I'm just trying to get somebody else to do it for me because I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Again, not right or wrong, not that one is necessary or the other one's unnecessary. You just have to understand what you're doing. and then
Yeah.
who you're going to need to help
If
you.
I can just add one more
yeah.
thing to that complaints piece, that client that I'm talking about specifically from experience didn't even have a complaints management system.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
literally
And
picking up the phone, finding out what the problem was, speaking to 100 different people over the course of X or whatever the average complaint resolution time was, and then going back to the customer with a solution, hoping it would resolve the problem.
yeah.
And then if it didn't, they went back to it, put more stuff on post-it notes, and kept going around in circles. Suffice it to say, we got them offshore in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. and again, this kind of goes back to the technology question, right? So a lot of people, it's like, I have to have all these things ready. That you don't. Like, sometimes you're going to outsource, like you said early on, which is, I'm going to work with a partner who's got the tech, who's got the systems, the things that I know I'm not doing and building, and I'm not going to do in house, and they're going to take care of it. Again, you just have to make sure you set it up, and you have the right expectation, and they have the right expectation, and everyone's working on it. Because again,
Yeah.
you could literally outsource something that you're not doing well yourself with post-it notes. I've been there. And then somebody else has the tech that you would love to have, but it's already up and running and they know how to use it. And instead of you implementing it, you know how. So I think that's great. Any final thoughts on that before we just end this conversation?
Before we move off and we kind of leave the outsourcing behind, which I know we're going to circle back around to in the future, because I know we've got a ton of outsourcing people that would love to come on our show and talk about why they do what they do. And they will be on. Don't worry. Trust me. I think my final thought is, look, if you've ever thought about taking something that you do and giving it to somebody else to do, think it through, make sure it's cost effective, and make sure it's a right fit for you. That's all I'm going to say. That's my final thoughts on the matter. But make sure it's right for you. That's all that needs to be said.
I think that's all that needs to be said. Exactly. And a great place to leave it, which I appreciate. So thank you for all this insight. I mean, what's fun is, we're both in this business. We both deal with this a bunch. It's not the only thing we do for companies and sales organizations, but it's a big part of it. And I love this because each time we talk, I learn some things from a different perspective, because you're coming at it from UK and the Caribbean and South Africa and different verticals and travel and telecom and all these different things that I haven't dealt with on my side. So, it's always fun for me because I learn from you as well. Like, having a partner that has all the tech and how you could integrate, like, that's, it's the kind of things, like, I haven't seen a lot of that. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you for being here. I'm always thinking in my head as I'm listening to you, as I'm sure you are to me.
Oh,
And,
whenever you're dropping them, I feel like you're just dropping bombs on me, Jason. Every day I'm like, oh yeah, top notch right there.
It's you or I, and we just have fun. Even if some people tuning in, not tuning in, people watching the replay after, you and I are having a blast. So we talked a lot about it in the beginning, the places to find this. Obviously, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn. There's a business page for Call Center Confidence with Cutter and Catt. There's also one on Facebook, and then it's on YouTube. It's currently still under my channel, under Jason Cutter, so you'll find it there. But make sure to follow those places, subscribe, turn on your notifications so you know when this happens each Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I think everybody changed except for you, maybe time-wise.
I'm too close to the equator. It's now 3:00 for me.
Yeah, so now you're off, but it's not important. So for everyone else, the time stayed the same. And also make sure, I forgot to mention earlier, go to luma.com/call center confidence, which is lu.ma. We haven't mentioned that in a while. You can go there and sign up and have this on your calendar, be a part of the list. As always, you can go to callcenterconfidence.com. You can see the replays. You can watch it live. You can send us an email. You can find everything about the show. But that's it for episode 25. And we'll wrap it up there. Oliver, as always, thank you for joining the show. And looking forward to when you take a vacation. I'll hold down the fort. But until then, we'll have a blast together.
Take care. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you.
Right.
See you soon.
Thanks, everybody.